Good. So, I'm Bex, that's Vic. If you can't tell us upon me, it's easy right now because we're not dressed the same, but in jumpsuits and rigs and stuff, it's quite challenging because we've got the same jumpsuits, same rigs, same helmets, mostly. If ever you're confused, Vic's usually wearing blue and I'm normally wearing red, but today that doesn't help at all, so we didn't plan that very well. We are AFF instructors and that's why we're talking to you today, but also we have day jobs. We're not cool like Emily, we don't work in sport. Just not full-time. Just not full-time. Vic's a charter manager, Master of Business, she's got an MBA, I've got a first-class degree. We're management consultants, we own our own consultancy firm, and I also specialise in health and safety. We've consulted in various different industries. You can read it, you probably can't, it's tiny. Airlines, financial services, defence, theatre, technology. I've worked at Microsoft, Facebook, EEBT, Unilever I did some consultancy for. Vic's currently running a massive project for the DWP, and I work for a property company at the moment. Skydiving qualifications, we've got about 2,500 jumps each. Victoria will tell you if I don't that she's got 2,500 jumps and I generally copy her logbook. So I'm assuming we've got about the same number of jumps. We are AFF instructors, canopy handling coaches. We've done a lot of FS coaching in the past and load organising. We're also wind tunnel instructors. We have in the past represented GB on the women's four-way team. We've medalled in AAA at the Nationals. We're very proud of our AFFBI, so free fly Nationals medal. That was way harder work than any of the four-way stuff. We've got a cheeky couple of world records for big way stuff, and we are the developers of the infamous Chick Jam. Some of you will have, none of you. Kathy, you haven't even been to Chick Jam yet, have you?
Kate has.
Kate's been. Good. Okay, cool. So we do a couple of things in the tunnel: Chick Jam and Mix Jam. Chick Jam is fairly evidently for the chicks, and Mix Jam is for everyone. It's basically carnage in the tunnel. So if you ever see that advertised and you fancy a bit of carnage in the tunnel, feel free to join up. A little chick jumping in there.
That's my best PowerPoint presentation ever. That chick.
We've done a lot of stuff. We just can't do PowerPoint. So this is today's about working in the sport. So as we say, we're part-timers in the sport. We do have real jobs, boring jobs. Yeah, real jobs in the city during the week, but on the weekends we like to jump out planes. And why did we want to do it? So when we did AFF, we were extremely lucky. We learnt at Western on the Green. It's no longer a civvy drop zone, it's still a military drop zone, but we had excellent instructors. And genuinely, from our first skydive, whilst being terrified, we decided, that's it, we're going to become AFF instructors, which were lofty goals back then for a one-jump wonder. We also decided we wanted to represent GB in the sport. We didn't even have a clue how that would even work. We didn't even know you could do that. Excellent instructors, really good instructors, and they inspired us to want to do the same. We saw back then as like being AFF instructors as the pinnacle of sort of skydiving prowess. I mean, clearly back then we didn't know that you could become an advanced instructor and an instructor examiner and all of those other things. But even now, I still think becoming an AFFI or having your AFFI rating is a pretty nice thing to have. It shows that you've achieved a certain standard and you've worked really hard to get there. We love the thrill of it, and being an AFF instructor, there is definitely still on every jump an element of, oh God, what is going to happen? We have a rule of if a student's really good on the ground, they're going to be really terrible in the air. If they're really terrible on the ground, they're going to be really terrible in the air. So just assume that they're going to be terrible, and if they're not, it's lovely and you have a nice quiet skydive. But be prepared for anything on every skydive. So the challenge of passing the course, being AFF instructors, but also passing the course. If anyone's done a British skydiving course, doesn't have to be AFF, but any British skydiving course, you'll know the stress and the tension that it comes with. And it's the stress that you put on yourselves. No one else is making you become an AFFI or anything, but it means such a lot that you put yourself under a lot of stress to actually do well on the courses. It gave us a focus for our skydiving activities. We're really goal-driven in every aspect of our life. We never do things just for fun. That sounds really boring. We go to the pub and have wine. That's for fun. They're the only things we do. It did trip off the tongue very easily.
but we always want a goal for whatever we're doing. So immediately we were qualified, we went on to a four-way skydiving team. So genuinely, from our FS1, we were on a four-way skydiving team for about 1,000 jumps. And then we decided maybe let's do our AFFI. So we then worked on that, and then we did our tandem rating. So there's always a reason for doing everything, and it's either to help progress our skills or us help other people progress their skills. Progression in the sport and continuous learning. Every jump you learn more. We want to expand our skill sets. We still want to do that. We absolutely love bringing new people into the sport and retaining them in the sport. And if you can catch them at their very first skydive, you have an opportunity to enliven them and bring them into this amazing sport of ours and teach them to be as best they can, and they feel like they've changed their lives once they've jumped out of plane. And the tandem instructors feel the same, I think. Once you've taken someone on their first skydive, whether it's TI, tandem or AFF, their life has changed. It will never be the same again. They're one of the few that's jumped out of the plane. Role models, we love to be role models in the sport. There are only 12% of women that have ever passed the AFFI course. Everyone that's ever done it. It's only 12% of women that have ever done it. So as female instructors, if you know us, you probably think that there's women instructors everywhere because we're quite pervasive. But there's very few female instructors in the UK, even fewer tandem instructors in the UK. So we love to be role models for women in the sport. We're really passionate about showing ladies and gentlemen, but ladies specifically, showing them the way. There is a route. If you can see it, you can be it. And if no one's leading the way, then it's much harder to start. We're proud of our status as instructors. We like to challenge the perception of skydiving and also challenge the old way of doing things. We learned at a military drop zone, and it was very military, and that isn't the only way to do these things. These days, not these days, we have a much more inclusive and softer, I hate that word, more inclusive way of teaching. We're not military instructors. We don't shout at people. We never lose our temper.
Not in view of our students. Wait, we're like this.
Fucking yeah, you'll notice as tunnel instructors or AFF instructors, we have an amazing ability to smile regardless of what is happening. We did all used to go to stage school, so that helped. But yes, keep smiling. Be the best and the most knowledgeable we can. Be more involved in the sport, as Emily was saying. It just draws you in, and she gave up her nursing career to come and be a skydiving instructor, and pretty much we were city career ladies until we first skydived, at which point we decided, okay, we do the city stuff to pay for the skydiving rather than for the benefit of being city girls at all. We love being an authority in our sport, and we love to help people overcome their fears and change their perception of themselves, as I mentioned earlier.
I'm not going to go through all this, don't worry, but we've taken extracts from the ops manual about what you need to become an AFFBI first. So you need to have a D licence, which is essentially 1,000 jumps, 2 years involved in skydiving, recommendation from your chief instructor, all these other things, just having a solo parachute licence, all that kind of stuff. You can read it yourself, but a little like Emily was talking about with the camera flying, 1,000 jumps is the minimum. It doesn't mean because you've got 1,000 jumps you're ready to be an AFF instructor, but that is the minimum that you need to achieve. That's for your BI, and then for the actual course, there's a few other bits and bobs that you have to do, but you can read it just as well as I can read it out here. If you look in the ops manual, make the ops manual your friend, by the way. If you want to become an AFF instructor, you're going to need to learn that ops manual inside and out. Don't test me now, Richard, because I don't know it inside and out now. But when we went on our course, we could pretty much go, what's on page 13, and we would more or less know. So make it your friend. Qualities of an instructor. If you do any course, instructor course from British Skydiving, we talk about the qualities of a skydiving instructor, 10 of them. So being a good example, the stuff we talked about earlier, being observant, firm but fair, so that whole be authoritative but don't get angry with people, unhurried, so calm, give the sense that you are calm and everything's okay, be confident, be knowledgeable, be alert at all times. Students run off, make sure you know what's going on, be approachable,
systematic in your approach, vitally important, and actually on our presentation later on this afternoon we talk about being systematic and how important it is in a situation like this. Have an inquiring mind, and in a late addition to the qualities of a good instructor, be caring. It's the first time that's anyone talks about being like a human. So caring, we want to make people feel welcome. So Rebecca and I had a bit of a discussion about other qualities that you might display.
And these are more, we think that these are the sort of what you have to do, and these might be the how you do them, and this isn't a British skydiving thing, I should say, this is just us talking crap after a few glasses of wine. So we think having an adaptable instructing style is super important. Not everyone learns in the same way, that's obvious. I learn differently from even the way Victoria learns, so it's not just about creating your style and inflicting it on everyone, it's about understanding the person in front of you and teaching them. We talked a little about EQ in relation to this one, emotional intelligence. It's interesting to read up a little about that if you want to become an instructor, any instructor actually, not just AFF, but that's all about understanding your emotions and other people's, reading other people and understanding how to get the best out of them, particularly in AFF. It's a super expensive course for people to do, and they're investing a lot of time and money and their life in your hands, and it feels only fair that we give them back exactly what they need to make them learn best. Be cheerful, happy and fun, or fake it super well. We feel the best instructors also have gravitas, and I don't really know how you teach gravitas. I feel like you sort of have it or you don't, and so hopefully when we interact with our students, they feel like we're authoritative and we know what we're talking about. Role models we spoke about before, inclusivity is a given. Become open-minded. Just a really small example of that is around when you're teaching students whose first language isn't English, which we have a lot, and sometimes when we're doing our emergency drills with them, we say to them, it's super hard, there's a lot of new language when you're learning AFF, a lot of it, even if English is your first language. If it isn't, these people, I'm so in awe of them, because not only are they learning a new language, they're also trying to do it in a language that isn't their first. So we allow people, for example, to do the emergency drills, so the look, locate, cutaway, reserve, arch. We allow them to do that in their own language. I don't care if they're not saying look, locate, cutaway, reserve, arch. Frankly, if they have a mouth, no one's there to hear it anyway. So as long as they're doing the right actions, that's all that matters. And it's just a tiny example of maybe thinking, oh, okay, I need to be a bit more open-minded on this occasion. Have integrity. I think it's worth mentioning that if you're the kind of person who gets hammered on a Friday night and then goes on a Facebook rant about some random divisive topic, you should sort of rein that in just a little bit if you're going to become an AFF instructor, because you're on show the whole time, whether you're on the drop zone, on social media, in the bar, wherever you are. You've got to think a little bit about your own behaviour. Trustworthy and honest is obvious. Be passionate about your sport. I think probably most people, by the time they've got to 1,000 jumps, it's pretty clear they're passionate about their sport, otherwise they'd have walked away years ago. And be genuine and authentic.
So similar to Emily, we thought about what people can do now if they don't have 1,000 jumps yet, and then when they are ready to do their course, we'll talk about that in a minute. But assuming you have fewer than 1,000 jumps at the moment, you can still be practicing to be an AFF instructor. Become a coach, highly recommend it. An FS coach is very, very helpful and very, very similar to being an AFF instructor. A free fly coach, the coaching part is similar, but you're not flying on your belly all the time. Flying on your belly is super important if you want to be an AFFI. Do loads and loads and loads of coaching. Make teaching natural. Don't turn up at your AFF course having never taught anyone, because it's a nightmare. You have to know that stuff inside out, and being comfortable with your material and comfortable speaking in front of someone is absolutely invaluable. Also, get people to listen to your briefing, because that's even worse. So get comfortable with that as well. Yes, and be confident with teaching. Treat FS and FF students as if they are AFF students. FS students are usually pretty close to having just finished their AFF, so they are a very good practice example of what coaching or teaching an AFF student's like. They may have 19 jumps. They literally may have just passed their AFF. So while you're not there to save their life as an FS coach, assume that they're going to look at you as if you are there to save their life. So behave in that fashion. So another way, or other ways that you can treat FS or FF students as if they're AFF students, do practice your 20-minute call briefs with them. So as an AFF instructor, on the course we get tested on how we brief a student 20 minutes before we get on a plane. Start doing that then, check their kit, ask them if they understand the skydive, talk through the skydives, check the hand signals again. Anything that you can do in that 20 minutes prepares you to become an AFF instructor. Talk about landing priorities. As I say, at this point, they've just stopped being an AFF student where someone said, so you're holding patterns here, the wind's coming from this direction, this is your downwind, crosswind and into wind leg. They are used to that. So adopt that. Ask them if they're comfortable with their landing priority. Ask them if they're comfortable with which way they're landing today. If the windsock's going this way, which way do you land? Practice those questions, because that's genuinely the sort of thing you have to talk to AFF students about. Check their kit in the pen and check their kit on the plane. There's no law that says just because you're an FS coach you can't check your student's kit. They are a qualified instructor, so just students, instructor. They are a qualified skydiver, so ask them on the plane if they mind checking. They mind you checking their kit. On the ground, you have to check their kit anywhere in the pen, so treat it as if they're an AFF student. They may have misrouted their chest strap, they may have not tightened their leg straps properly, or over-tightened them because they're freaking out because it's their first jump off AFF, being watched again. Practice debriefing FS or FF coaching jumps from memory. On the AFF course, you are not allowed to wear a camera. So you have to remember what happened on that skydive in the heat of the moment when it's really stressful and you've got someone like Jeff tracking away from you, chasing them, and in your head you're going, got to chase Jeff, but also got to remember to tell Jeff he tracked away from me. So there's a lot of
That's
things
the true
going.
story, by the way.
Yeah.
Jeff wasn't made up that happened. One of Victoria's students on AFF course.
That's how bad it's ingrained in me. So you've got to remember what happened without having the benefit of a camera. So practice doing that. Clearly still wear a camera and debrief the student from a camera, but remember in your own head what happened. And practice being close to your student. Clearly you need to give them some space because they need to demonstrate skills, but start using it as if they're an AFF student, because when they're off AFF, they are just off AFF, so the chances are they will be backsliding. So as soon as you're at the plane, be thinking about going forward to them. That always happens, always. So be close to them, closer than you think. Should be able to touch them if you need to. So just be close to them. Also, think about doing your CSBI or CSI course if you're on a drop zone that teaches RAPs. You can do that from 200 jumps, and by the time you get to 1,000 jumps, then it's old hat to you. So do whatever you can before you have a number of jumps to practice for when you do.
I'm going to whiz through this because I'm aware we'll stand here and talk all day. So I'm going to whiz through this a little bit. So what can you do to prepare for your AFFBI course? Teach as many ground skills as you can. You have to be observed by an qualified instructor. But teach as many as you can and favour teaching ground skills over jumping at this point. Know your DZ's lesson plans inside and out. Don't get caught on your course thinking can't remember what this bit relates to. Memorise the relevant parts of the ops manual. So we've got a little asterisk here, and this is about nuisance factors and MALs. It makes me a bit jumpy talking about nuisance factors in MALs, even in this scenario, because when you're teaching a student, you do not put MALs and nuisance factors in the same sentence, the same lesson even. So it's things like that, super important. Don't get sent home on day one because you've said about nuisance factors in a MALs lesson or vice versa. Build your network of AFF instructors, advanced instructors and instructor examiners. It goes without saying that the more people you talk to, the more knowledge you have, and in this scenario, knowledge is definitely power. Shadow instructors, it's super useful. You'll get to see different ways that they teach, things that will sort of seem natural to you, some things that won't seem natural but seem like a good idea, so you can practice them. Observe on AFFBI courses. I think you can do that. I'm sure you can do that. Just see what people are what they're going to go through. So the first time you're on yours, it's not the first time you've seen it. Sit in on lots of ground schools. Talk to AFF students, whether that's around the DZ or in the bar. Get a feeling for what they're going through so that you're used to it by the time you become an instructor. learn the acronyms. These are some acronyms that will help you pass your course. One is slightly more rude than the other, but that one, the rude one's easier to remember. Carry on coaching, lots of FS coaching, and the course, the AFFBI course, even the BI course, is mentally challenging, so really prepare for that. It's not a walk in the park course, none of the courses are, this one particularly isn't.
And then finally, to prepare for your actual course, and again there's many bits of advice and all instructors will give you different advice, but we found that you can't do too many beat-up jumps. Just do as many beat-up jumps as you can. Ideally with instructor examiners. So beat-up jumps are fake AFF jumps when you've got a qualified skydiver pretending to be your student. So if you can do some fake ones of those with an instructor examiner, they are literally showing you what's going to happen on the course. Do as many of those as you can, because the jumping part, you've got 5 jumps to prove that you're worthy, people. 5. And you have to score a certain amount to pass the course. So be super, super confident in your ground skills, but also in your jumping skills. Do lots and lots of belly flying. You may be an awesome free flyer, but that is not what AFF is about. It's about belly flying. So get on your belly and do it a lot. Be very, very current. Observe AFFI courses so that you know what's going to happen. Film on AFFI courses. They need people to jump out and film the people that are on the course. So do some of that if you've got your camera license and all of that. Film real AFF jumps, and then you'll see what really happens in the sky. Obviously, you've got to do that with the permission of the student and the instructors. Continue to teach ground schools at this point. Be so bored of ground schools that by the time you go on your course, you don't even have to think about it. It just takes an element of stress away. Kit up AFF students for real. Ask the AFFI before you do that, but kit them up. Start checking them as if they were your student. And listen in on AFFI jumps, briefs and debriefs so that you can hear the sort of language that's used.
And then we've only got 2 last slides, and these we've called it words of wisdom, these last 2 slides. We basically asked a selection of instructor examiners, AFF instructors, advanced instructors to give us some words of wisdom. If they could tell people that are about to go on their course, what would they say? So Ali Milne, those of you guys who jump here, and probably even those that don't jump here know Ali, he says learn and try to apply the methods of instruction brief as much as possible. They aren't just things to learn for a test, but they'll help your students learn. You might not get everyone in every lesson, but critiquing yourself means you'll improve as an instructor, which means you'll make better and safer students. Learn the 10 qualities of an instructor. We've spoken about that twice on this. Can't emphasise how important that is. No one's good at all of those qualities. Find out which ones you need to work on and then work on it. And if you don't know something, look it up in the ops manual. This is the ops manual, is your friend bit. You can search the PDF version with a find function online. Oh no, that was Bryn. No, was that Bryn? No, okay, that was Ali. Bryn. He's an AFFI, a TI, an AI, and an IE. So the closer you are, the stronger you have. So that's what we're talking about being close to your students. Be so close to them, and then when you think you're close enough, get closer. And he says, let them go and let them go high. And that is words of wisdom for the AFFI course, but it's also for real, with real students. And what that means is, on the course, on the AFF course, your instructor examiner, who's your student, is going to do something to test you on that jump. So you're better off giving yourself the most altitude you can to deal with whatever they've just thrown at you. If you spend so long getting out the plane, oh, we're stable, okay, I'm just going to give some fairly benign signals. How about check altitude? All right, it's not going to do anything if I do that. All right, let's just do a little bit straight. And you go through all the signals, showing how good you are at giving signals. You then at about 8,000 feet by the time you've let them go. And then the thing that they were going to do, they now do. And at that point, you should be thinking about getting close and getting back on for pull. So for the course, that's vital. They are going to do stuff, let them go, let them get on with it, give yourself as much altitude to deal with as possible. And for real students, that is even more important. They are going to do something crazy probably on that jump. So let's get the altitude before you then have to deal with it. Don't wait until the bottom part of the skydive before you let them go. Rob Spohr, he is an AFF instructor, an advanced instructor and an instructor examiner. He talks about guarding your height, and by that probably four-way jumpers probably know, but guard your height means don't go low on your student. So it's easier to see where they are and to get to them if you're higher on them than lower. If you're lower on them, they're out of sight, you don't know where they are, they could be doing all kinds of things until they flip on their back and go flying past you. That happens. So guard your height, know why you teach something and its benefits to the student and to you. Don't just regurgitate. If you don't know why you're teaching or coaching something, find out why. Inquiring mind at all times. Inquiring mind was one of the 10 qualities of an instructor. This part is a little about being authentic and genuine and having gravitas. If you're just sitting regurgitating lesson plans, it doesn't come across as in a knowledgeable way. And all AFF instructors have a level of in-air ability. The good ones do the simple stuff well first on the ground, absolutely. This is for the course, but also for real life. If your instructor examiner, who's your student, gets in the mock-up and does the wrong knee and the arms the wrong way and goes like this out the door on the ground in the mock-up, that is what they are going to do in the air.
They've already told you that's
Yes.
what they're going to do in the end.
So you have to see what they're on the ground. What are they doing that's going to mess me up? Oh, I see when he goes out of the plane, I see that he's actually jumping out the mock-up and doing this. Oh, what's going to happen when he actually jumps out the plane and does that? I know, he's going to barrel roll at best. Most likely, just go on his back. Understand why you're teaching. This is about doing good stuff well on the ground. And the final slide.
And the final one, James Lee, he's an AFFI, really nice guy. Train hard, test easy, that's what we were saying. Be really familiar with your lesson plans, be really confident teaching people, be really current in your skydives. Get to the point where you feel like you enjoy the beat-up jumps and have confidence with performing the dives and techniques. So once you go on your course, the instructor flips onto his back immediately, you're like, oh, this is a rollover dive. So be that familiar with it so you know what's happening. Tricky, he used to be an AFFI, he said make sure you learn the exam answers. Don't be the plonker sent home on day one. You have to do an exam, know it by heart, practice. So again, that's just something to take away from the stress. Ollie Newberger, also super nice guy. He said, when I was thinking about becoming an AFFI, I asked Eno, do you have to be a great skydiver to be a good AFF instructor? And Eno said, no, you don't have to be a great skydiver, but you do need to be a great instructor. But if you're not a great instructor, you better make sure you're a great skydiver. So you have to, ideally you're a great skydiver and a great instructor. But if you're not a great instructor, you better be a good skydiver. Kim Myers, Dress for Success, that includes students as well as yourself. We talk about that a lot in skydiving. Make sure your 15-stone AFF student is not in a skin-tight jumpsuit. It will be harder to follow them when they go on their back or spin. And Stu Alban, also, he's an AFFI, an instructor examiner and also advanced instructor. He says, be close enough to teach, but give the examiner room to learn. And he says, if you don't do that, bring a large brown envelope stuffed with cash and you can't go wrong. I think that's a joke.
That's a joke, yeah. Just checking with Jeff.
Yeah.
Good. That's it. That's all we had, guys. So I don't know if you have any questions or anything. No? Cool. We spoke at you like super fast for ages. So we're around the rest of today and tomorrow, so if you have questions, let us know. And we have one slot on the practical beat-up jumps bit, so if anyone wants to join us for beat-up jumps, it's not just us, don't worry, there's a couple of people as well. There's a list by manifest, so put your name on it and join us for beat-up jumps. So that's it.